Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. You're in for something different today. So, border checkpoints. We think of them as these mundane, bureaucratic places where we hand over our passports, answer a few questions, and move on with our lives. But there's something uniquely unsettling about these locations. When you really think about it, they exist in these liminal spaces, literally between nations, between jurisdictions, sometimes in the middle of absolute nowhere. They're staffed by people who see thousands of faces pass through. Most forgettable, but some they can't forget no matter how hard they try. Today, I've compiled 6 accounts from immigration officers and border agents who've experienced things at their posts that defy rational explanation. These stories come from online forums, archived reports, and in one case, a recording that was anonymously sent to a podcast dedicated to unexplained phenomena. What you're about to hear are their experiences, told as they claim they happened. Before we dive in, if you enjoy this kind of content trio accounts of the unexplained, the disturbing, the just plain wrong, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps me bring you more stories like these. Alright, let's get into it. Story 1. The Repeating Woman. Here's something that'll make you think twice about your next border crossing. There are documented cases of the same person appearing at different checkpoints, hundreds of miles apart within impossibly short time frames. Not twins, not lookalikes. The exact same person, with the exact same ID, giving the exact same responses. This first account comes from a post on a no-defunct forum for Customs and Border Protection officers. It was shared by a user named DesertWatch72 in 2019. The moderators verified his credentials before allowing him to post, and several other officers in the thread confirmed experiencing similar phenomena. Here's his story. My name is Marcus, and I work the Antelope Wells port of entry between New Mexico and Mexico for almost 8 years. If you've never heard of it, don't feel bad, most people haven't. It's one of the most remote border crossings in the United States. And on a busy day, we'd see maybe 20 vehicles. Most days, 5 or 6, if that. The isolation gets to you after a while. It's just you, your partner, and an endless expanse of desert in every direction. The nearest town of any size is over an hour away. At night, the silence is so complete it feels like pressure against your eardrums. You start to understand why some guys don't last more than a year out there. It was late October, around 10:47 p.m. when she first came through. I remember the exact time because I'd been watching the clock, willing my shift to end. We didn't usually get anyone that late on a weeknight. Her headlights appeared as distant pinpricks in the darkness, growing slowly larger. A white sedan, maybe 10 years old, covered in the kind of dust you accumulate driving through backcountry roads. She pulled up to my station and rolled down her window before I even approached. "Good evening," I said, shining my flashlight into the vehicle. Standard procedure. The woman behind the wheel was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She wore a blue cardigan over a white shirt. Her expression was neutral, not nervous, not friendly, not annoyed by the wait, just blank. "Oh, evening," she replied. Her voice was flat, almost mechanical. "Citizenship?" I asked. "American passport or ID, please?" She handed me a New Mexico driver's license, Linda Huerta. The photo matched. Everything seemed in order. I ran it through our system clean record, no flags. "What's the purpose of your trip to Mexico?" I asked. "Visiting family." "How long were you there?" 3 days. "Bringing anything back? Goods? Food? Purchases?" No. The whole interaction was textbook. Routine. I handed back her license and waved her through. She drove off into the darkness, taillights fading into nothing. I forgot about her almost immediately. You process so many people, even in a quiet post like Antelope Wells, that they blur together unless something unusual happens. 90 minutes later, she came through again. Same white sedan, Same layer of dust. Same woman, same blue cardigan, same blank expression. I recognized the license plate this time as she pulled up. "Ma'am," I said, more confused than suspicious. "Didn't you just come through?" She looked at me with those empty eyes. "Excuse me? I came through this checkpoint about 90 minutes ago." "Same vehicle. Same no," she interrupted. "This is my first time crossing tonight." I felt a strange prickle run down my spine. I definitely processed this woman. I'd held her license in my hand, saw her face through this exact window. "Can I see your ID again, please?" She handed it over. "Linda Huerto, same license." I checked the number against my log from earlier. It matched perfectly. "Ma'am, according to my records, you crossed at 10:47 p.m. It's now 12:19 a.m. She just stared at me. I was in Mexico visiting family. It's my first time crossing back. Something was very wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. She wasn't slurring her words or showing signs of intoxication, wasn't behaving erratically. Her story was consistent with what she'd told me earlier, because it was exactly word for word what she'd told me earlier. I called my supervisor, Jim, who was in the back office. He came out and I explained the situation. He looked at her, looked at the license, checked the logs. "Could be a system glitch," he said quietly to me, "or he processed someone who looked similar." But I knew that wasn't it. This was the same woman, same car, same license number. We ran additional checks. Everything came back clean. Legally, we had no reason to detain her. Jim, wanting to avoid potential complaints, told me to let her through. She drove away without another word, disappearing into the New Mexico darkness. "You're tired," Jim said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Night shifts mess with your head. I've confused people before too, except I wasn't confused. I know what I saw." The really disturbing part came 3 nights later. I was telling my girlfriend about the incident over the phone. She lived in Las Cruces, and I'd see her on my days off when she suddenly went quiet. "What did you say her name was?" she asked. "Linda Huerta." "Why?" "Marcus." Linda Huerta died in a car accident in 2015. I went to high school with her daughter. I was at her funeral. My blood went cold. "Are you absolutely sure?" "Positive. It was big news because she was a teacher at our school. Single car accident on Highway 9 near the border. They said she fell asleep at the wheel." I looked Linda Huerta up myself after that call. My girlfriend was right. Obituary, death certificate, all of it public record. Linda Huerta had died 4 years before I checked her license. I tried to tell Jim, but he dismissed it. Said it must have been a relative with the same name or someone using a stolen identity, despite the photo matching perfectly. He didn't want to file a report that would make us both look crazy. The worst part? 6 months later, I processed her again. The same time of night, same white sedan, same dust, same blank expression, same blue cardigan, same word-for-word responses. Visiting family 3 days? No. I didn't say anything about recognizing her. I just checked her license, ran it through the system clean, as always, and waved her through. My hands were shaking the entire time. I quit 2 weeks after that. Couldn't take it anymore. Isolation was one thing, but knowing that something fundamentally wrong was happening. Something that broke the basic rules of reality, and nobody cared or believed me. Sometimes I wonder how many times she's crossed since I left. How many other officers have processed a dead woman and just didn't realize it, or worse, realized it and said nothing, just like Jim told me to do. There are thin places in this world, borders within borders, where the line between what should be and what is gets blurred. I worked at one of those places. And whatever Linda Huerta is now, wherever she's going when she crosses, I'm glad I don't have to witness it anymore. If you're enjoying these accounts so far, I'd really appreciate it if you'd take a second to hit the like button. And if you want to hear more stories like this, real experiences from people working in these strange, isolated places, subscribe to the channel. Trust me, we're just getting started. Story 2. The checkpoint that shouldn't exist. Here's an unsettling fact. There are border checkpoints that appear on no official maps, aren't listed in any government database, and yet thousands of people claim to have passed through them. Structures that exist in one moment and vanish in the next, staffed by officers who ask questions that make no sense. This next account was recorded and uploaded to a paranormal podcast in 2021. The person who submitted it requested anonymity and refused to be interviewed further after sharing this recording. The podcast hosts tried to verify some details, but hit dead ends. The checkpoint he describes doesn't officially exist, and the Highway Patrol has no record of anyone matching his description working in the area. Here's what he had to say. My name is... Well, I can't tell you that. I still work in law enforcement, and if this got back to me, it would ruin my career. What I can tell you is that for 3 months in 2018, I worked at a border checkpoint that I'm now convinced shouldn't have existed. I was 24, fresh out of the academy, and desperate for work. The job market for Border Patrol agents wasn't great in my area, so when I got a call about a temporary assignment at a newly established checkpoint in West Texas, I jumped at it. The pay was decent, and they said it was only for a 3-month trial period while they assessed traffic patterns. The checkpoint was on Highway 90, about 40 miles from the actual border. They put me up in a motel in a tiny town I'd never heard of, population maybe 300, and gave me a schedule. Overnight shifts, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 6 days a week. The checkpoint itself was basic. 2 lanes, a small prefab building with a bathroom and break room, portable lights, some traffic cones, nothing fancy. My job was simple. Stop vehicles, check IDs, ask standard questions, look for anything suspicious. My supervisor was a guy named Garrett. Mid-50s, weathered face, didn't talk much. He showed me the ropes on my first night, ran through procedures, then left me to it. Said he'd check in every few nights, but otherwise I was on my own. That should have been my first warning sign. What checkpoint operates with a single officer? But I needed the work and didn't ask questions. The first week was normal, boring even. I'd get maybe 10-15 vehicles a night, mostly locals who got used to seeing me there. A few travelers. Nobody gave me trouble. Nobody had anything to hide. It was the easiest job I'd ever had. Second week is when things started feeling off. I was processing a middle-aged couple in a pickup truck when the woman asked me, "How long has this checkpoint been here? We drive this route twice a month and we've never seen it before." I told her it was newly established, maybe 2 weeks old. She and her husband exchanged a look. "That's strange," she said. "We came through here just last week." There was nothing here then. I figured they'd taken a different route or misremembered, but it stuck with me. Over the next few nights, 3 more people said similar things. Regular travelers on Highway 90 who swore the checkpoint hadn't been there days earlier. Then, about a month in, I had a night where something happened that I still can't explain. It was around 2 a.m., dead quiet. I hadn't seen a vehicle in over an hour. I was in the break room, half asleep over a cup of coffee, when I heard a car pull up. I went out to find a red sedan at the checkpoint. Older model, maybe from the 80s, in pristine condition. A man sat behind the wheel, maybe 60 years old, wearing a suit and tie, at 2 a.m., in the middle of nowhere. "Evening, sir," I said. "License and registration, please." He handed them over without a word. I checked the license, California ID. Name was Richard Voss. The registration matched the vehicle. "What brings you out this way?" I asked. He stared straight ahead, not looking at me. "Where's home?" "Where's home? Where it's always been." Strange answer, but nothing I could cite him for. His documents were valid. No warrants, no flags in the system. "Have you been to Mexico recently?" I asked. "No. What's the purpose of your travel through Texas?" He finally turned to look at me in his eyes. They were wrong. Not the color or anything physical, but the look in them. Empty. Like looking into a house where nobody's lived for years. "I'm going home," he repeated. I felt a strong urge to let him go. Just wave him through and forget about this interaction. Every instinct was screaming at me to get this man away from me. Safe travels, I said, handing back his documents. He drove off. I watched his taillights disappear down Highway 90, heading east. Then, I went back to the break room and tried to shake off the encounter. About 10 minutes later, I heard another car pull up. Same red sedan, same man in a suit. Same California license plate. My heart started pounding. Approached the driver's window. "Sir, you just came through here. License and registration, please," he interrupted, handing me the same documents. I was holding them in my hands, but I looked down anyway. Richard Voss. Same address. Same vehicle. "What brings you out this way?" His voice was flat, almost like he was reading from a script. "No, I'm asking you," I said, my voice shaking. "You just drove through here 10 minutes ago. What's going on?" He turned those empty eyes on me again. "I'm going home. You told me that already. Where is home?" "What do you safe travels?" he said, cutting me off. Then he rolled up his window and drove away. I was shaking. I called Garrett immediately. "There's something wrong," I told him. "The driver just came through twice. Same car, same everything, acting like the first time never happened." Garrett was quiet for a long moment. "What did he look like?" I described the man, the red sedan, the suit. Another long pause. "Did he say anything unusual?" "He said he was going home, both times." His eyes. "Garrett, something was seriously wrong with." "Listen to me carefully," Garrett interrupted. "If you see him again, let him through. Don't ask questions. Don't try to stop him. Just let him through." "What? Why? Do you want to keep this job?" "Yes, but then let him through. Some things aren't meant to be questioned." He hung up. I didn't see the red sedan again that night, or the next. But I couldn't stop thinking about it, about Garrett's reaction. He knew something. He'd expected this. I started paying more attention to the checkpoint itself. Details I'd overlooked. It's like how there were no serial numbers on any of the equipment. How my paychecks came from an account I couldn't trace to any official CBP division. How none of the other border agents I knew had ever heard of this checkpoint location. In my last week there, I had 5 more encounters that defied explanation. A woman who spoke in a language that my translation app couldn't identify. A family of 4 who all had the exact same birth date. An elderly man who, when I shined my flashlight into his car, had no reflection in the rearview mirror. Each time, I followed Garrett's advice. I let them through. I didn't ask questions. On my last night, Garrett showed up just before my shift ended. Told me the trial period was over. The checkpoint was being discontinued. He handed me my final paycheck in cash and said I'd done good work. "One piece of advice," he said as I was packing up my things. "Don't go looking for this place again. Don't try to drive past here and see if it's still standing. Just forget you ever worked here." "What was this really?" I asked. "What was I actually doing here?" He gave me a sad smile. "We're working a checkpoint, son. Just not the kind you thought." I wanted to press him, to demand real answers, but something in his expression stopped me. He wasn't threatening me. He was trying to protect me. I left. I never went back. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. I've talked to other border agents since then, shown them the approximate location where the checkpoint was. Every single one of them says there's never been a checkpoint on that stretch of Highway 90. The local residents I managed to track down? They've never seen one either. I have 3 months of paychecks cash, untraceable as proof it happened. I have memories of hundreds of people I processed, but no documentation, no employment records, no fellow officers who remember working with me. It's like those 3 months existed in some pocket of reality that the rest of the world doesn't acknowledge. And the things I saw, the people I let through, I don't think they were entirely human. I think I was manning a border between this world and something else. A checkpoint at a crossing that has nothing to do with countries or geography. Sometimes I see them, in crowds or passing by on the street. People I processed at that checkpoint. They never acknowledged me, but I recognized them. The woman who spoke the impossible language. The man with no reflection, as others do. They're here, among us, having crossed through. And whatever they are, wherever they're really from, I helped them get here. That's why I can't give you my name. That's why this is the only time I'll ever speak about this. Because some borders aren't meant to be crossed, and some checkpoints aren't meant to exist, but they do. And somewhere out there right now, someone else might be manning one, letting things through, never knowing what they're really allowing into our world. Pretty disturbing stuff. If you're enjoying these stories, do me a favor and hit that like button. And subscribe if you haven't already. There are 4 more accounts coming, and they only get stranger from here. Story 3. The Passenger in the Trunk. Here's something to consider. Immigration officers are trained to spot human trafficking, check vehicles for hidden compartments, to listen for sounds that don't belong. But what happens when you find someone in a trunk who insists they're not being smuggled, who insists they need to stay hidden, who begs you not to let them out? This account comes from a Reddit post in the Our Border Patrol subreddit from 2020. The user, Checkpoint Charlie 88, made only 3 posts before deleting their account. Other verified border agents in the thread vouched for the legitimacy of some details, though no one could confirm the specific incident. The post was archived before deletion. Here's what they wrote. I've worked at the I-19 checkpoint north of Nogales, Arizona for 12 years. I've seen just about everything you can imagine. Drug smuggling operations. People crammed into vehicle compartments in conditions you wouldn't believe. Families trying to cross together. Scared kids. Desperate parents. It's heavy work, emotionally exhausting, but it's what I signed up for. In 12 years, I thought I'd seen it all. Then I met the woman in the trunk, and I realized I hadn't seen anything yet. It was a scorching afternoon in July, the kind where the heat comes up off the asphalt in visible waves. We were backed up unusual for that time of day because we'd gotten a tip about a potential smuggling operation. Everyone was on edge, being extra thorough with searches. A silver Toyota Camry pulled up to my station, maybe a 2012 model. Driver was a Hispanic male, mid-30s, alone in the vehicle. He looked nervous, but most people do at checkpoints, even when they have nothing to hide. Afternoon, sir? Citizenship. U.S. citizen, he replied. His hands were gripping the steering wheel too tight, knuckles white. Where are you coming from today? Tucson. Just visiting family. Can you pop the trunk for me, please? His face went pale, not the reaction you want to see. The trunk? Yes, sir. Standard procedure. We're being thorough today. He didn't move. Just sat there, hands frozen on the wheel, staring straight ahead. Dard, I need you to pop the trunk. You don't want to do that. His voice was barely a whisper. My training kicked in. This was a smuggling attempt. Possibly drugs, possibly people. I signaled to my partner Rodriguez, who approached the passenger side. Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time. Pop the trunk, or we'll open it ourselves. He closed his eyes. Please, you don't understand. She can't come out. She can't step out of the vehicle, sir. Now, we followed protocol, removed him from the car, patted him down, found the trunk release. My adrenaline was pumping. This was going to be big. You develop an instinct for these things. Rodriguez and I positioned ourselves on either side of the trunk. I looked at him. He nodded, and I lifted it open. There was a woman inside. She was curled in the fetal position, mid-20s maybe, wearing jeans and a gray t-shirt. Her eyes were squeezed shut, and she was whispering something over and over. Not Spanish, not English, something else. Ma'am, I said, reaching in. Ma'am, you're safe now. Come on out. Her eyes snapped open, and I've never seen such pure terror in a person's face. No, she screamed, pulling away from me. Don't let me out. Please, you have to close it. Close it now. I stepped back, confused. Rodriguez and I exchanged glances. Ma'am, we're here to help you. You don't have to be afraid. Close the trunk. She was thrashing now, trying to reach the lid herself, but unable to from her position. Please, please, I can't be in the light. I can't. That's when I noticed her skin. Where the sunlight was hitting her arms, her face it was turning red. Not like a sunburn, like it was cooking, blistering in real time. Jesus Christ, Rodriguez muttered, moving to block the sun with his body. The woman was crying now, still whispering in that language I couldn't identify, curling tighter into herself. The driver was yelling from where we'd detained him. I told you not to open it. My supervisor, Jenkins, ran over. What the hell is going on? There's a woman in the trunk, and the sun is it's burning her, I said, aware of how insane it sounded. I don't know how, but close the trunk, Jenkins ordered. But we can't just close the trunk, now. Rodriguez lowered the lid, and the woman's screams stopped. We could hear her sobbing, muffled by the car's interior. Jenkins pulled me and Rodriguez aside while two other agents watched the vehicle. Did either of you touch her? I reached toward her, I said. That's when she started screaming. Did you make contact? No. Jenkins looked relieved. Good, don't. What the hell is this? Rodriguez asked. Jenkins ignored the question. Went to talk to the driver who was sitting on the ground now, head in his hands. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I saw Jenkins's expression change. Saw him pull out his radio and make a call using a channel I didn't recognize. 20 minutes later, 2 black SUVs arrived. No agency markings. 6 people got out, all wearing suits, all moving with military precision. One of them, a woman with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, spoke briefly with Jenkins, then approached the Camry. She knocked on the trunk 3 times. Deliberate. The crying stopped. She said something in the language the woman had been whispering. I caught maybe 2 words, but they meant nothing to me. A muffled response from inside the trunk. The gray-haired woman nodded and opened the trunk. The woman inside didn't scream this time. She sat up slowly, and the gray-haired woman wrapped her in a thick black blanket, covering every inch of exposed skin. Then she helped her out of the trunk and into one of the SUVs. The driver was placed in the other SUV. Neither of them were handcuffed. Neither seemed to be under arrest. The gray-haired woman spoke with Jenkins one more time, then both vehicles drove away, heading north. Jenkins gathered all the agents who'd witnessed the incident. He didn't see anything unusual today, he said. Standard vehicle search, no contraband found, driver was released. That's what goes in your reports. Are we clear? What the hell was that? I asked. That woman was burning in sunlight. Her skin was... Are we clear? Jenkins's voice was hard. We all nodded. What else could we do that night? I couldn't stop thinking about it. I did something I probably shouldn't have. I looked up the vehicle registration. The Camry was registered to David Torres in Tucson. I found his Facebook page. Normal guy. Elementary school teacher. Married. 2 kids. His wife's profile was public. Recent photos showed family outings, birthday parties, beach trips, all of them in broad daylight. All of them showed his wife and kids, one matching the description of the woman in the trunk. But there was one photo that stopped my heart, from 3 years ago. David with his arm around a young woman, maybe his sister or cousin. The caption reading, "Missing you, Alina. Always." The woman in the photo was the woman from the trunk. I scrolled through the comments. Condolences. She's in a better place now. 3 years gone, but never forgotten. Alina Torres had died in a car accident in 2017. There was a funeral, an obituary, grave site with her name on it. So who the hell had been in that trunk? I tried to tell myself there was a rational explanation. Maybe it was a different woman. Maybe the sun reaction was some kind of rare medical condition. Maybe those people in suits were from some specialized medical transport team. But I knew better. I saw what I saw. The next day, Jenkins called me into his office. I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to forget it immediately afterward. Understand? I nodded. There are protocols in place for situations that fall outside normal border security. Situations that involve circumstances we're not equipped to handle. When those situations occur, specialized teams respond. Our job is to identify them and step aside. That's it. What was she? I asked. Doesn't matter. She's not your concern anymore. Was she even human? Jenkins stood up, signaling the conversation was over. Go home, get some rest. And forget you asked that question. I tried to forget. I really did. But every time I opened a trunk during a vehicle search after that day, my hands would shake a little, because I kept wondering, what if there's another one? What if next time the person inside doesn't warn me? What if I'm not as lucky? 6 months later, I transferred to an office position. I couldn't handle checkpoint work anymore. My wife thought it was because of stress, and I guess she was right, just not the kind of stress she imagined. Sometimes late at night, I think about Alina Torres. It's about whatever she became after she died. About the fact that she needed to cross through a U.S. border checkpoint hidden in a trunk, avoiding sunlight to get where? To do what? And I think about David Torres, a school teacher who loved his sister enough to smuggle her corpse or her ghost, whatever the hell she was, in his trunk. The fear on his face. The desperation. There are borders we monitor every day, checking documents and searching vehicles. But there are other borders too. Borders between life and death, between human and something else, between the world we understand and the one we don't. I used to think my job was to protect one. Now I know it's to stay the hell away from the others. These stories are getting to you. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. We still got 3 more accounts to go, and trust me, they're worth sticking around for. Story 4. The 27-hour shift. Here's an unsettling fact about reality. Time doesn't always move at the same pace for everyone. Now imagine that happening at a border checkpoint, where everything is logged, time-stamped, and monitored. Where discrepancies in time aren't just unsettling, they're impossible. This account was shared on a law enforcement message board in 2022 by a Canadian Border Services officer. The post was quickly removed by moderators, but not before it was screenshot and shared across multiple forums. The officer who posted it never followed up or responded to comments. Here's what they wrote. My name is Sarah, and I need to tell someone about what happened at the Pacific Highway border crossing between British Columbia and Washington State. I've tried reporting it through official channels, and I've been put on administrative leave for psychiatric evaluation. They think I had a breakdown. Maybe I did. But this happened exactly as I'm about to tell you. It was February 14th, 2022. Valentine's Day. I remember that specifically because my girlfriend had given me grief about working a holiday. I was scheduled for an 8-hour shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., standard overnight rotation. The crossing wasn't particularly busy that night. Winter midweek traffic is usually light. My partner was a guy named Tom Reeves, good officer, worked there for about 5 years. We'd done dozens of shifts together. Everything was completely normal until around 1:30 a.m. I was processing a vehicle family of 3, returning to the U.S. from a day trip to Vancouver when my computer screen flickered. Just for a second. I thought nothing of it and continued the entry process. Then I noticed my watch. It was digital, synchronized to atomic time, read 1:31 a.m. But the computer system showed 1:43 a.m., 12-minute difference. I tapped the screen thinking it was a glitch. The time didn't change. 1:43 a.m. Tom, I called over to the next booth. What time do you have? He checked his watch. 1:32. Computer says 1:43. He frowned and checked his own terminal. Mine too. Must be the system acting up again. We'd had computer issues before, so this didn't seem too alarming. I made a mental note to report it and continued working. The family drove through. I started on the next vehicle. Single male, Canadian citizen, returning from a work trip. My watch now read 1:35 a.m. The computer showed 2:14 a.m. 40-minute difference in just a few minutes. Tom, the time discrepancy is getting worse. Yeah, Mine too, he called back. He sounded unconcerned. I'll radio the supervisor. But when he picked up the radio, nothing happened. No static, no response. Just dead air. Radio's out, he said. I tried mine. Same thing, complete silence. That's when I started feeling uneasy. I looked down the line of vehicles waiting to cross. There were maybe 6 cars, normal enough, but they weren't moving. The drivers just sat there, waiting patiently, not seeming to notice that the line hadn't advanced, and I checked my watch 7 minutes. I'm going to go check on the supervisor, Tom said, stepping out of his booth. I watched him walk toward the main building, maybe 50 feet away. He opened the door and went inside. I processed the next car, then the next. My watch and the computer system were now over an hour apart. The cars kept coming, one after another, and I kept checking documents, asking questions, waving them through. Everything felt automatic, robotic. I looked toward the building. Tom hadn't come back out. I checked my watch. 2:11 a.m. Computer. 4:47 a.m. How was that possible? More cars. I processed them. Canadian citizens, U.S. citizens, temporary visitors, everything in order. Wave them through. Next car. Check documents. Wave them through. The line never seemed to end. My watch. 2:45 a.m. Computer. 7:23 a.m. The sky was still completely dark. I stepped out of my booth, intending to go find Tom, but my legs felt heavy, like moving through water. I made it maybe 3 steps before I felt this overwhelming compulsion to go back, to keep processing vehicles. So I did. I processed a woman with 2 children, a truck full of construction equipment, an elderly couple, a young man with a backpack. My watch, 3:18 a.m. Computer, 11:56 a.m. The sun still hadn't risen. I started asking the drivers what time they had. Every single one of them checked their phones or watches and told me times that matched my computer system, hours ahead of my watch. Hours that didn't make sense given the position of the moon, the darkness, the fact that my shift should have ended already.
Oh, what time is it?
I asked a middle-aged man in a Honda Civic. He checked his phone. Almost noon. Does it look like noon to you? I asked, gesturing at the pitch-black sky. Looked confused, glanced up at the sky, then back at me. I guess there's cloud cover. There were no clouds, just stars. Have a nice day, I heard myself say, waving him through. More cars, more documents, more impossible time stamps. My watch, 4:52 a.m. Computer, 3:37 p.m. I was exhausted. My shift was supposed to have ended at 6 a.m., but it felt like I'd been working for days. My feet ached, my eyes burned, but I couldn't stop. Every time I thought about leaving the booth, that compulsion returned. Process the next vehicle, check the documents, ask the questions, wave them through. Tom still hadn't come back. I processed a vehicle with diplomatic plates, family with a dog, a commercial truck. The drivers all seemed normal, unbothered, existing in their own version of time that didn't match mine. My watch, 5:47 a.m. Computer, 8:19 p.m. The sky began to change, not getting lighter like dawn, getting darker somehow. The stars were fading, but no sun appeared. The darkness became absolute, thick, like something physical pressing down on everything. I processed a car I swear I'd processed before. Same make, same model, same driver, same questions, same answers. Then another familiar vehicle, then another. They were looping, coming through again and again, and I kept processing them, kept waving them through. Trapped in some kind of temporal loop at a border crossing between one country and another, between one moment and the next. In my watch. 6:03 a.m. Computer. 2:47 a.m. The times were moving backwards now. That's when I heard Tom's voice on my radio. Sarah, can you hear me? I grabbed it. Tom, where are you? I'm in the building. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Where have you been? I've been in my booth, processing vehicles. What's going on? What time is it? 6:03 a.m. Shift's over. Come inside. I looked at my watch. 6:03 a.m. Looked at the computer. 6:03 a.m. Both synchronized again. The sky was lightening in the east. Normal dawn, colors pink, orange, purple. I stepped out of the booth on shaking legs. The line of vehicles was gone. The crossing was empty, just me standing alone in my booth, with no evidence that anything had happened. I walked to the building. Tom was sitting in the break room, drinking coffee, looking completely normal. Where were you? I asked. What do you mean? I've been in here since 10 last night. You never showed up for your shift. My blood ran cold. Tom, we worked together. You were in the booth next to mine. No? You went to check on the supervisor when the radios went out. He looked at me like I was insane. Sarah, I worked alone tonight. You called in sick, don't you remember? I didn't call in sick. I was there. I worked my entire shift. Tore. I thought I did. My supervisor came in. Chen, glad you're feeling better. Reeves said you called in with a migraine. I didn't call in. I was here. I worked my shift. They exchanged glances. Kind of glances that made my stomach drop. My supervisor said gently, You weren't here. Tom worked solo tonight. There's no record of you clocking in. I checked my phone. February 15th, 6:24 a.m. Exactly 8 hours after my shift was supposed to start. But I had no memory of those 8 hours except for the shift I'd worked the shift that apparently never happened. I tried to explain. Told them about the time discrepancy, the looping vehicles, the darkness that wasn't quite darkness. They listened with increasingly concerned expressions. That's when they put me on administrative leave. Ordered me to see a psychiatrist. Told me to take a few weeks off, get my head straight. But I know what happened. I worked a 27-hour shift in an 8-hour period, or maybe I worked an 8-hour shift that never technically occurred. I processed hundreds of vehicles that may or may not have been real. I experienced time breaking down at a location specifically designed to process transitions, to mark the crossing from one place to another. Borders are strange places. They're not really one country or the other. They're in-between spaces where rules are different, where authority is split, where you're technically nowhere until you're officially cleared to be somewhere. What if time works differently there too? What if in those in-between spaces, hours can stretch or compress or loop back on themselves? What if I slipped into one of those pockets and worked a shift outside of normal time? Haven't been back to the crossing? I don't think I can. Because the worst part, the part I haven't told anyone else, is that sometimes I still feel it. That compulsion, that pull to go back to my booth, to process vehicles, to check documents and wave people through. Like part of me is still there. Still working that shift, still trapped in that impossible span of time where clocks meant nothing and reality bent around a border crossing. The psychiatrist says it was a dissociative episode brought on by stress. My girlfriend thinks I had a mental breakdown. Maybe they're right. But every night around 1:30 a.m., I wake up with the absolute certainty that somewhere, in some version of time, I'm still standing in that booth. Still processing vehicles. Still trapped in a shift that never ends. These accounts just keep getting stranger. If you're still with me, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. We've got 2 more stories. I promise they're going to stick with you long after this video ends. Story 5. The face that keeps appearing. Here's something that'll make you paranoid. Border agents are trained in facial recognition, both technological and human. They're supposed to spot when someone is using a fake ID, when family members don't actually match, when something is off about a person's appearance. But what happens when the same face keeps appearing on different people? when the technology confirms they're different individuals, but your eyes tell you otherwise. This account comes from a series of emails sent to a journalist. Investigating border security in 2023, the sender used an anonymous email address and provided just enough verifiable details to suggest they were legitimate, but refused to reveal their identity or meet in person. The journalist published excerpts of the emails, but never received further contact. Here's what they wrote. I'm sending you this because I don't know what else to do. I've reported what I've seen through official channels and been dismissed. I've tried talking to colleagues and been labeled paranoid, but this is happening, whether people believe me or not. I work at a land border crossing on the northern U.S. border. I can't tell you which one, but it's a high-traffic location, handling thousands of crossings per week. I've been there for 9 years. 3 months ago, I processed a man I'll never forget. Not because he did anything wrong or suspicious. It's because of his face. He was maybe 35, unremarkable features, brown hair, clean-shaven, Canadian citizen, crossing for business. His passport was legitimate, his story checked out, his documents were in order. I waved him through without a second thought. 2 days later, I saw his face again. Different person. This time a woman, mid-40s German passport, crossing as a tourist. But the face, the exact same face. Same eyes, same nose, same mouth, same bone structure. Like someone had copied the man's face onto a woman's head. I stared at her, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. She noticed my expression. Something wrong? She asked. No, sorry. Just vu. I processed her documents and waved her through, but my hands were shaking. I told myself I was tired, that I'd confused her with someone else. Faces can look similar. It happens. But then I saw it again. 4 days later. A teenage boy, American citizen, returning from a hockey tournament in Canada. Same face. Exactly the same. I started paying closer attention. Started taking mental notes every time I saw that face. Over the next 6 weeks, I counted 17 people with identical faces. Different ages, different genders, different nationalities, different backgrounds. But the exact same face. The technology never flagged them. Our facial recognition system, which can spot identical twins, insisted these were all unique individuals. Their fingerprints were different. Their documents were all legitimate. There was no legal or procedural reason to detain any of them. But they all had the same face. I started documenting it. I couldn't take photos, that's against protocol, but I wrote down every detail. Times, dates, passport numbers, nationalities. I compiled a list of 17 people who shouldn't have looked identical but did. Then I made a mistake. I told my supervisor. He listened to my report with a blank expression. When I finished, he asked, "Do you have proof?" I have the documentation, the records. You can pull up their photos in the system and compare. I've looked at the photos, he interrupted. They don't look the same to me. That's impossible. They're identical. Exactly. Officer, I think you should take a few days off. You've been working a lot of overtime. Fatigue can cause all kinds of perceptual issues. I insisted he look again. He pulled up the passport photos on his computer. I pointed at the first one, the businessman who started it all. Now look at this one, I said, pulling up the German woman's photo. He studied both images. These are two completely different people. Look at the eyes. The bone structure. Different people, he repeated firmly. One is a man, one is a woman. Different ages, different builds. I don't see any similarity beyond the fact that they're both Caucasian. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, sir. They have identical faces. How can you not see? Take a week off, he said. Paid leave. Come back refreshed. If you're still seeing things that aren't there, we'll discuss it further. I took the week off. Spent it reviewing my notes, trying to figure out if I was losing my mind. But I knew what I'd seen. 17 people. Same face. When I returned to work, I saw number 18. It's an elderly woman, maybe 70, crossing from Canada with her daughter. Same face, on a 70-year-old woman. And I realized something that made my blood run cold. The face didn't age. The teenage boy looked like a young version of the 35-year-old businessman, but the facial structure was identical. The elderly woman had wrinkles and sagging skin, but underneath, the architecture of her face was exactly the same as all the others. It was like someone was using the same template and just adjusting the age, gender, and surface details. I kept my mouth shut, didn't report it, just documented it privately and kept working. Number 19 was a child, maybe 8 years old, traveling with her parents. Same face on a little girl. Number 20 was another man, similar age to the original, but different nationality. Chinese citizen, businessman, legitimate travel. I started having nightmares. In them, I was processing a line of people that never ended, and they all had the same face. All of them staring at me with those identical eyes, asking me why I was letting them through when I knew something was wrong. But what was I supposed to do? They weren't breaking any laws. The system said they were different people. My supervisor couldn't see what I saw or claimed he couldn't. Last week, I reached number 27. It was a man in his 40s, American citizen, returning from a fishing trip. I checked his documents, looked at his face, the face I'd now seen 27 times, and asked the question I'd been afraid to ask. Has anyone ever told you that you look like someone else? He smiled. It was the first time any of them had smiled at me. All the time, he said. I've got one of those faces, I guess. One of those faces, I repeated. Yeah. Generic, you know. It's easy to forget. But that was the thing, I couldn't forget it. His face was burned into my memory now, more familiar to me than my own. Have a nice day, I said, waving him through. I watched him drive away, and I wondered, what are they? Why do they keep crossing? What are they doing here? I've started researching cases of identical faces appearing throughout history. There are more than you'd think. Stories of doppelgangers, of people seeing their own faces on strangers, of the same person being in multiple places at once. There's a theory in quantum physics about parallel universes, alternate realities where different versions of people exist. What if these people are somehow slipping through from other realities? What if border crossings, these liminal spaces between countries, are also weak points between dimensions? Or maybe it's something simpler and more terrifying. They're not people at all. They're something else, wearing faces, crossing borders, integrating into our world. Using the same template because they don't understand that humans are supposed to look different from each other. The face appeared again yesterday. Number 28. A teenager this time, 17 years old, according to her documents. Traveling with a school group. I processed her in silence, hands shaking, and let her through. Tonight, I'm sending you this email. Tomorrow, I'm quitting. I can't do this anymore. Can't keep letting these things through. Can't keep pretending I don't see what I'm seeing. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe you'll read this and think I've lost my mind. But I'm telling you, there are 28 people who have crossed through my checkpoint in the last 3 months, and they all have the exact same face. And the worst part? I saw that face in the mirror this morning. Just for a second, when I was brushing my teeth, I looked up and it was there. The face. On my reflection. And I blinked, and it was my own face again. But I saw it, which means either I'm one of them now, or they're getting into my head. Or the border between whatever they are and what I am is starting to dissolve. I don't know which possibility is worse. This is the last time I'll contact you. You publish this, don't use my name. Don't try to find me. Just warn people. Tell them to pay attention to faces at border crossings. Tell them that if they see the same face twice, they're not imagining it. Tell them to run. Only one more story to go. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Sharing these stories is important, even if they're difficult to believe. Story 6. The shift that ended yesterday. Here's a final disturbing fact to leave you with. There are documented cases of people experiencing events in the wrong order. Remembering things that haven't happened yet, or living through moments that already occurred. Temporal displacement, some call it. And nowhere does it seem to happen more often than at border crossings, those in between. Places where time itself might be just as fluid as the jurisdictions. This last account comes from an audio file uploaded to a paranormal research website in 2024. The person who recorded it claimed to be a Border Patrol agent working in Montana, along the U.S.-Canada border. The audio file was accompanied by a timestamp log that, when examined by multiple sources, showed impossible inconsistencies. The recording itself contains glitches and distortions that audio experts haven't been able to explain. Here's what it says. Static, then a man's voice, mid-30s, sounding exhausted. I don't know if this is recording correctly. I don't know if time's moving in the right direction. But I need to document this while I still remember which version of events actually happened. Or which version is happening now. Or, Christ, I don't even know how to explain this. My name is Michael Torres. I'm a Border Patrol agent working the Del Bonita station in Montana. It's one of the most remote crossings in the U.S. Barely gets any traffic. Most days I'm alone here for entire shifts. I think today is March 8th, 2024, but I'm not sure, because I also remember it being March 9th, and I remember tomorrow. I've been living the same shift over and over, except it's not the same. Things keep changing. Let me try to explain from the beginning. I came in for my shift at 6 a.m. on March 8th, standard Friday morning. I relieved the night officer, a guy named Peterson. He looked tired but normal. Told me it had been quiet. I settled in for what I expected to be a boring 8 hours. Around 9:30 a.m., a pickup truck approached from Canada. Single driver, male, maybe 50 years old. I stopped him, asked for his documents. Citizenship, I asked. American, he said, just coming back from a fishing trip. I checked his passport. Everything was in order. Catch anything? Nothing worth keeping, he said, smiling. I waved him through. Out. Totally routine interaction. Dee! Except 30 minutes later, the same truck approached from Canada. Same driver, same fishing trip. What? Same conversation, word for word. Catch anything? Nothing worth keeping. I waved him through, feeling deeply uneasy. Maybe he'd forgotten something and gone back. But the Canadian side would have noted his return and immediate recrossing. At 11:15 a.m., my relief showed up, except I wasn't scheduled to be relieved until 2 p.m. The officer, woman named Diaz, looked confused when she saw me. Torres, what are you doing here? I'm working the morning shift. No, I'm working the morning shift. I've been here since 6. That's impossible. I've been here since 6. We stared at each other, both absolutely certain we were right. She pulled up the schedule on her phone, showed her as the morning officer. My name wasn't on it, but I had worked the morning shift. I remembered relieving Peterson. I remembered processing the fisherman. Twice. Then it got worse. The time stamp on the computer system said 2:47 p.m. My watch said 11:18 a.m. The sun's position in the sky suggested early morning, maybe 8 a.m. What time is it? I asked Diaz. She checked her phone. Almost 3. Why? I showed her my watch, 'cause mine says 11:18. She looked at my watch, then at me, then at her phone. Your battery must be dead, but my watch was digital, solar-powered, automatically synchronized to atomic time. I couldn't be wrong. I went outside, trying to clear my head. That's when I saw the pickup truck again. Same one, same driver, approaching from Canada for the 3rd time. I stopped him. Sir, this is the 3rd time you've crossed this morning. He looked confused. 3rd time? This is my 1st time back from my fishing trip. No, you came through at 9:30, then 10 o'clock. Now it's, I checked my watch, 11:24 a.m., but the computer inside said 3:02 p.m. The man was getting nervous. I don't know what you're talking about. I've been fishing in Alberta for 3 days. This is my 1st time crossing back. I checked his passport entry stamps. Only one stamp from 3 days ago when he'd crossed into Canada. Nothing from this morning. I let him through. What else could I do? I went back inside. Diaz was gone. Peterson was there instead. Torres, you're early for your shift. Peterson, my shift started at 6. You relieved me. What are you talking about? It's 5:45 p.m. Your shift starts at 6 p.m. I looked at the computer. 5:47 p.m. My watch. 11:31 a.m. The sun. Still morning height in the sky. I've been here all day, I insisted. Peterson put his hand on my shoulder. You feeling okay? You look pale. That's when I noticed the calendar on the wall. It said March 9th. What's today's date? I asked. March 9th, Saturday. Why? But it was Friday. March 8th. I'd come in on Friday morning, except Peterson's watch also said March 9th. So did the computer system. So did the calendar. But I remembered March 8th. I'd lived through it, hadn't I? I excused myself and went to the bathroom, splashed water on my face. When I looked in the mirror, I saw something that made my heart stop. I was wearing a different uniform. Yesterday's uniform had a small coffee stain on the chest. I'd spilled some during my drive-in. This uniform was clean, but I hadn't changed clothes. I pulled out my phone to check the date. March 10th. Sunday. The bathroom door opened. An officer I didn't recognize came in. Morning, Torres, he said casually. Morning, I replied automatically. What day is it? He gave me a strange look. Sunday, March 10th. You okay? I went back to my station. My shift was just starting, according to the logs. It was 6 a.m., but I had just experienced 5:47 p.m., and before that, 3:02 p.m., and before that, 11:18 a.m. Time wasn't moving forward. It was jumping, skipping, going backwards and forwards randomly. That's when I saw the pickup truck again. Same driver, same fishing trip. He pulled up to my station, and I knew exactly what he was going to say. American. Just coming back from a fishing trip. Catch anything? Nothing worth keeping. But this time, I looked in the bed of his truck. There was something there, under a tarp. Something that moved. Sir, I need to inspect your vehicle. He smiled. Of course, I went around to the truck bed, pulled back the tarp. It was me. I was lying in the truck bed, wearing my uniform, eyes open, not breathing. Dead. The me standing beside the truck looked down at the body, then back at the driver. I don't understand, I heard myself say. The driver smiled wider. You're caught in a loop, officer. Time keeps resetting here. Has been for years. You just never noticed until now. That's impossible. Is it? You've processed me 4 times today. You've worked 3 different shifts. You've experienced March 8th, 9th, and 10th simultaneously. And now you've seen your own body in the back of my truck. I backed away, reached for my radio. I'm calling for backup. Go ahead, the driver said. But who will respond, Peterson, who relieved you yesterday? Diaz, who replaced you tomorrow. The officer you've never met who will be here next Sunday? I ran inside. The station was empty. No other officers. No one on the radio. Just me and the impossible timestamps on multiple devices, all showing different moments, different days, different versions of reality. I started this recording because I don't know what else to do, because I'm afraid that when I stop talking, time will skip again. I'll jump to a different moment, a different day, and lose track of which version of events is real. Long pause, static increases. The pickup truck is still outside. The driver is still smiling. I can see in the truck bed that there are now 2 bodies, both me, both wearing my uniform, both with the same expression of terror frozen on their faces. I think I understand now. This isn't a temporal loop. It's a border checkpoint, but not between countries. It's between moments. It's between versions of time that aren't supposed to exist simultaneously. And I'm trapped here, living every moment at once, dying in the back of that truck in some of them, still working my shift in others. Recording this in one version, listening to it in another. The driver is getting out of the truck. He's walking toward the building. I can see him through the window. He's me. It's not a different version of me, literally me. Same face, same age, same uniform, and he's smiling the way the driver smiled. Sound of a door opening. Oh God, there are more of them. More of me. Coming out of vehicles I don't remember processing, all wearing my uniform, all smiling. They're surrounding the station. I don't know which one is real, which one is the original. Maybe none of us are. Maybe we're all copies, echoes, temporal reflections of a person who died here years ago in a time loop they never escaped. The sound of multiple voices, all identical, speaking in unison, time to clock out. Torres, static increases dramatically. I'm still here. I'm still recording. But I'm also outside with the others. I'm also in the truck bed. I'm also relieving Peterson. I'm also being relieved by Diaz. I'm living every moment of my existence at this checkpoint simultaneously. This is what happens at borders. You cross from one place to another, one moment to another, but sometimes you get stuck in the crossing, stuck in the in-between. If you're listening to this, don't work remote border stations. Don't take shifts at places where time moves differently. Because once you notice the loop, once you see the cracks in reality, all the voices in unison now, you never leave. Recording ends abruptly with a sound like glass-breaking outro. Those 6 accounts represent just a fraction of the strange experiences reported by border agents and immigration officers at remote crossings around the world. People working in liminal spaces, in places that exist between jurisdictions, between nations, between one reality and another. Are these stories true? I can't verify them with absolute certainty, but the people who shared them believed they were true. They experienced something at those checkpoints that fundamentally changed their understanding of reality. Maybe these are just stories. Urban legends passed around by overworked officers trying to make sense of the isolation and stress of their jobs. Or maybe borders aren't just political constructs. Maybe they're places where the fabric of reality wears thin, where things can slip through that shouldn't exist, where time and space behave differently than they do in the rest of the world. If you enjoyed these stories, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me continue bringing you these accounts of the unexplained, the disturbing, and the just plain wrong. And if you work at a border checkpoint, or if you've crossed through one and experienced something strange, well, maybe keep that story to yourself. Some things are better left unreported. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there. And the next time you cross a border, pay attention. Notice the officers checking your documents. Look at their eyes. Ask yourself, how long have they been there? What have they seen that they're not allowed to talk about? Because after hearing these stories, I'll never look at a border checkpoint the same way again. Till next time.